They didn't do anything. I saw the entire thing. They asked to use the bathroom, and the woman said it's for paying customers only, then asked them to leave. They didn't do anything.
And we're talking about the kind of everyday racism that led to the arrest of 2 black men who were simply waiting for someone to show up at a business meeting at a Philadelphia Starbucks.
And the more blatant kind, like the kind of hate, frankly, that Roseanne Barr put on display today. She tweeted out a racist and personal attack on one of our guests who's joining us here tonight.
And Valerie Jarrett is the former senior advisor to President Barack Obama. Also with us, Reverend Al Sharpton, host of MSNBC's Politics Nation and president of the National Action Network, and Sherrilyn Ifill, the president and director-counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
So, Valerie, we want to give you an opportunity to respond to all that's happened today, not just the tweet, but ABC's response.
Well, first of all, I think we have to turn it into a teaching moment. I'm fine. I'm worried about all the people out there who don't have a circle of friends and followers who come right to their defense. The person who's walking down the street minding their own business and they see somebody cling to their purse or want to cross the street. Or every black parent I know who has a boy who has to sit down and have a conversation, the talk, as we call it. And those, as you say, those ordinary examples of racism that happen every single day. And I think that's why I'm so glad to be here this evening talking with all of you.
And for those of you who have not heard, this morning actress Roseanne Barr tweeted this: Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby equals VJ. It was only after some immediate backlash that Barr then tweeted this: I apologize to Valerie Jarrett and to all the Americans. I'm truly sorry for making a bad joke about her politics and her looks. I should have known better. Forgive me. My joke was in poor taste.
Hours later, ABC canceled her show, saying Roseanne's comments were, quote, abhorrent, repugnant, and inconsistent with our values. You think they did the right thing?
I do, and I want to mention that Bob Iger, who's the CEO of Disney, called me before the announcement. He apologized. He said that he had zero tolerance for that sort of racist, bigoted comment, and he wanted me to know before he made it public that he was canceling his show. And so I appreciate that they did that so swiftly.
And Rev, you have been in the middle of these kind of controversies before. People remember the Don Imus situation. You're often, called upon to sort of talk to, corporations and industry, people when they find themselves in this situation. Do you think ABC did the right thing?
Oh, they did the right thing, and I think it is important, the statement they made, because what I think we're dealing with is those that are still trying to turn us back into a day that is considered normal. And I think we can't get away from the fact, if it starts raining, you look for clouds. The clouds that have been put over this country to try and bring us back to where this is normal, to take a well-educated, beautiful woman like Valerie Jarrett, which they did similar to Michelle Obama and President Obama, and equate them with monkeys is not acceptable, and we cannot tolerate it. When you have a president that started his political career on birtherism, saying that he's not one of us, when he did everything he could to do dog whistling around this issue of race, people like Roseanne feel they're empowered. Well, they got the memo today, you're not empowered. People are not going to take it.
I wonder if you agree. Do you feel like this president has set a tone that has made people feel increasingly empowered to say those kinds of things?
Well, this is what I think, Chris. I think tone does start at the top, and we like to look up to our president and feel as though he reflects the values of our country. But I also think every individual citizen has a responsibility, too. And it's up to all of us to push back. Our government is only going to be as good as we make it be. And as Reverend always taught me, you have to be, people on the inside have to push hard, and people on the outside have to listen. And I think that I'm heartened by so much of what I've seen over the last several months. Those young people from Parkland who were able to force Florida to change a law that they had no intention of changing before the tragedy shows what happens when ordinary Americans lift up and have their voices heard.
And Sherrilyn, it's not just the rhetoric, it's also the policies, and many of those are underpinned by the law. I mean, you spend your career trying to fight to make sure that inequity doesn't get baked into the system. What are the risks that sort of the attitudes that people may have toward people of color then wind up being reflected in the law?
Well, that's why this is so important to push past just the politics of what's happening in this country and really deal with the reality that I think Valerie raised early on about what happens to ordinary people. Because let's be clear, you know, racism did not begin with the current president. What has happened is that this tone that you're describing has unleashed something that we had achieved some progress with. That is that there was a taboo, there was a velvet rope across a certain kind of public rhetoric and dialogue about race that has been removed. And that does have real consequences. It has real consequences, first of all, in terms of the danger to ordinary people. We have seen an exponential rise in hate crimes since the end of 2016, and that is real. That's about African Americans. That's about Muslim Americans. That's about members of the LGBTQ community. There is something that has been unleashed in this country that has real consequences for the day-to-day lives of ordinary people. Then when you think about the kind of comment that Roseanne Barr made today, something that feeds into a kind of very old stereotype that did not begin with her and did not begin with Donald Trump, that dehumanizes black people. When you dehumanize people, you can do anything to them. You can lock them away for years for minor offenses and think that their lives have no value. You can punish black girls in a way that you would not punish white girls. You can drag a black girl in a bikini and pin her down, right? And treat her like a criminal as a police officer. You can shoot a 53-year-old man running away from you in the back. You can do all of these things because you don't think that they are exactly human. And so this rhetoric has real consequences to the legal landscape that we face. When people see these things on their television, it begins with a message that has been sent about who we are. And to the extent that we are othered in this way, to the extent we are regarded as something less than human, something less than a full citizen, something less than a person entitled to full dignity, it puts people in danger.
Yeah, and it's not new. I mean, I can still recall the cartoon that was a monkey cartoon about President Obama. I mean, early on in the administration, when you would Google Michelle Obama and you'd look at the Twitter images, it was horrific. So it's not as if it is new, but do you get the sense that there is a more permissive atmosphere toward it?
I think it was much more on the fringe, and I do think that there has been, and some of it is as a result of social media being weaponized. It can be an incredible force for good, but it can also kind of dehumanize because it's distant. You don't have to look at the faces of the person that you're attacking. So I think we're in that time, but I would remind everyone it was 10 years ago this year, President Obama gave his race speech right here in Philadelphia. Right. And it was a unifying speech, and it was one to try to help educate and have people appreciate diversity is a strength, but we all are a result of our upbringing, but that we can change. We can be better. And it appealed, I think, to our better angels. And we have to get back to that again.
Yep.
But I think what's important is when we talk about this tone, 10 years ago, President Obama made his speech here in Philly, and some blacks were saying, don't be that conciliatory. But he set that tone. You can't imagine this president making a speech about race in a city of brotherly love. And that is what we've got to deal with, which is why I think this dialogue today is important, because we don't have to agree, but we don't have to get ugly. Right. And we don't have to start bringing us back to the country that did not elect and reelect a black president, because we did that. We made a lot of progress. We have a long way to go, but we made some progress, and some of us are not going back.
Yes, indeed. Well, when we come back, we're going to hear from the head of Starbucks about what his company is doing today to combat the bias that happened here in Philly.
More from our MSNBC Town Hall when we return. Don't go anywhere.